What's going on? D-Star back again with another tutorial. Today we're going to cover 5 ways to speed up your workflow in Ableton Live. Over the course of time, I always try to figure out ways to speed up my workflow, and I'm always trying to think, how can I go faster? Trying to think about pain points that slow me down when I'm working, and here's 5 of them that I think can improve you greatly. So let's start at the top here. Oh, and first, before we get into it, please hit that like, hit that subscribe button. And also, if you guys have any content you guys want me to cover, you guys have a question, a production question or whatever, hit me below. And also, I do offer mentorships and private lessons. Hit me. That said, let's get things started. Tip number one. Everybody says, oh, and I'm one of these guys too. I love doing my drums in MIDI, but everybody says, oh, I don't ever do my drums in audio, or I don't use audio because what if I don't like the snare drum later on, or I don't like the kick drum later on? Well, I've got a tip for you. Replacing audio samples. Damn, that snare drum just doesn't fit a house groove. What was I thinking 8 hours into this track? Open up the timeline, double click on the sample itself I called it the timeline. Well, I've been doing too much video editing. Right click down here, manage sample file, and then you get this little thing here, the thing that shows up when you're missing files. Oh, well, maybe since you're making trap house, this young Metro snare will work. Drag it over here, boom, all the snares replace themselves. Hope that saves somebody out there a lot of copy and pasting. Tip number 2. The search button. This is so obvious, and in the last year or two, I got in the habit of really using this a lot. Apple F, I'm assuming Control F if you're on a PC, and you can search for anything. So anytime I'm thinking to myself, damn, I need a really cool guitar, I search guitar. And I'm like, all right, cool. And I go through all my guitars and I look and I'm like, wow, that's a really long list. Oh wait, what was that up there? There was like a red dot. I saw that. Boom. And that brings me to my 3rd tip, the red dot. Organizing in the browser. This is section number 3 of my tips, right? I have the inspo box, I have synths, I have effects, racks. And what I can do is I can mark things. So if I think something's hot, kind of hot. For a Vengeance loop, come on. If I'm gonna make like the next titanium, that's my joint right there. I press 1 to mark it, and that marks it red. I can press 2 and I can mark it, and that's my synth folder, so I don't really put stuff in there. 3 is my effects folder, and these are all effects that I really like to use. 4 are my racks, which is a huge game changer. There's a video on that already. And there's blue and purple, which I have no idea, probably fat fingered something. So when I do type in guitar and I press Apple F and I search, I can see these red dots. Those are samples that are from my inspiration box, and those are like my wow, I need to use that someday. Cool. Other things about the browser that people might not necessarily know is that you can actually open up projects in the browser. So I have this little sound designs folder, and you can actually open up an Ableton project in here, and you can look at that, and you can see all the tracks, and you can drag them in, or you can drag the entire project in here. So what I like to do is if I get bogged down, or if something sucks, or if I need to do something differently, for example, vocal processing or do vocal editing, let's say I recorded like 10 tracks of vocals or live recordings, and I want to bring them into like an already finished production, an instrumental, and I want to mix them in the project. A lot of times I'll do at least get like the organization, I'll do the recording in another session, and then in here I can go in here and I can choose things. Or for sounds that I used in previous songs, I can simply drag them in. The options are endless. And that's tip number 3. Using the browser to your maximum capability. Tip number 4, resampling, right? You start a new track, go to this drag down, hit resample, press record, and record. Awesome, right? Now you can have like your own version that you can manipulate in here. So you can do effects and you can process, granular synth, whatever. You can import the whole track into it, whatever you want to do. However, if you have a master channel on and it's really aggressive, let's type in a saturator and let's get a crazy saturator. See that Apple F is so key. Let's say I'm for some reason using a saturator on my, maybe a group or something like that, but it will resample that audio. So let's try that again, turning it down quite a bit, turning my monitors down a little bit. Let's hit record and let's resample. Oops. As you can see, it records a distortion. Well, super simple way to fix that. Group all these tracks together by highlighting, selecting, pressing Apple G or Control G if you're one of those guys. And then you can choose group and you can resample from there. and now you can bypass the mastering. Resampling is really, really useful for coming up with different ideas, different chops, messing around with stuff. I like to play with warping a lot, the granulizers. There's a lot of granular synths. I like to bounce parts of my track, bring them in, et cetera, et cetera. I'll let you guys get creative with it. There's also tons of beat repeat and all those weird effects that sometimes people use for whatever reason. And let's move on to the next tip. Our final tip, number 5, is the save as default preset setting. So let's say we're gonna use the reverb that Ableton builds in, right? We open it up, boom, my quality's already at high. That's because on any EQ or any built-in plugin in Ableton Live, there's save as default preset, which means if you find yourselves constantly using the same settings over and over again with an Ableton preset, you can set it up like that and right click, save as default preset. So one that I really recommend to everybody that I know is to save a couple clicks. The first thing I do, we covered this in the last video, is that I love to low cut everything that I bring in almost always, unless there's obviously sub data in there. If I have low end, and then I don't do that. But to save me on clicks, I set it up so that's the sharpest curve, and I also set up some oversamplings on, which in most cases gives me a higher quality result. So you can set that up. I shut everything as flat because I don't want it to happen. I don't want the EQ to be on when I bring it in, and I right click and I do save as default preset. Do be careful with this because you can overwrite the default presets, and I'm pretty sure it's a pain in the ass to get it back. However, this saves me a lot of clicks because then I don't have to go down here every single time I start an EQ. I don't have to come down here and choose the sharper curve. I always have it set up. I also did a shelf there, and then a less steep high cut as well up there because those are settings that I quite often use. So your mileage may vary. The reverb being on high quality is another one that I constantly use. I believe I changed the vocoder as well to automatically route against the modulator, which is a bass sound. Yeah, I already changed my vocoder setting because I use that setting quite a bit as well. But yeah, your mileage may vary. Be creative with it. And let's call it there. So hope you guys got something out of it. 5 super quick tips that should help your workflow quite a bit, at least save me a lot of time. Thank you guys. Take it easy. Peace.